Well, this is a huge honor to have an opportunity to speak with you, not only about the company you've built, but I think more importantly, especially for today's conversation, the ability to take a global brand, something that is obviously very important to you, but here in your hometown, root that global brand here in Baltimore and the impact, and we're going to dive into a lot of that. But just how meaningful was it for you as Under Armour, the brand, continued to grow and become such an international player, for you to be able to bring it home, headquarter it here, and allow the growth of the brand to also impact a city that we all know is very important to you?
Well, first, I don't go in anywhere cold, so there was always going to be a video that would play first. So hopefully everybody got a little feel for what Project Rampart is. That speaks to some of the momentum that we have here in this city. I know there's a lot of people on behalf, and just before we get started, I know this is kicking this event off for day 2. Welcome to our town. Welcome to Baltimore. And yes, May is the prettiest month of the year. I can't explain the rain, but I want to welcome everyone from all over the world, the country, the Garden State, and every place else. So we're really thrilled to have you here. Baltimore is not my hometown. My hometown is D.C. I started the company and grew up in Kensington, Maryland, and then went to University of Maryland. Was lucky enough to play football there, and then set up shop in a little row house in Georgetown in Washington, D.C., which is 1996. And then the middle of 1998, I was like, it's time for me to move. And the reason to move was because being the youngest of 5 kids, you know, my growing up throughout, like there were, I went to a place called Georgetown Prep where my 4 brothers ahead of me went to school. And then I made this proactive decision to move from the Jesuits to the Christian Brothers on their request, to start a new school, a place called St. John's. Then I ended up at a place called Fork Union Military Academy, which is like, it's kind of the place you get sent to. And, but it straightened me out and got my head on, and I ended up at the University of Maryland. And then the first thing I did was went to had this idea for a shirt, and if I was going to build it, athletes were wearing these sweat-soaked cotton T-shirts. There must be a better alternative. Came up with this concept of why not using compression short material like on the bottoms but on the uppers, and saved a lot of time, made athletes better. Sent it to all the friends that I'd met from all the different high schools that I'd gone to, plus my college, University of Maryland, and that's something that basically allowed Under Armour to get built. And then it was about 3 years in, and I think this is important. Like what drew me to this town. You know, I was in a row house in Georgetown in Washington, D.C., living upstairs, sales office on the ground floor, keeping inventory in the basement. You know, year 1 revenue after my senior year, last year playing at Maryland was 95. First year was, started the company spring of 96 as I was graduating from Maryland. And it was 17,000 revenue that first year. It took us 5 years to get to our first $5 million in revenue. As part of that growth, it was around year 3 where I was like, it's time to make a change. And it was everywhere I went, there was, you know, oh, I know that you're Stu's little brother, or this one, I was still the little brother. I remember you from high school and what happened there. And that wasn't always a great thing. And I was like, I need a fresh start. I'm going to stay in my hometown. There's this town called Baltimore that, frankly, if I'm starting this sports brand, there's a need in the market. You know, old money is represented on the podium of great sports brands. And there's 3 or 4 that are there, plus some newcomers. There's the old money aspect, which are the ones in Oregon today. I don't mention the names. There's the cool kids, which are the 2 brands in Germany as well. There's the new Sunday Casual, which is the brand from Canada. And then there's this brand, and more importantly, this space that I think that we represent. And that space, Greg, is probably hopefully what you and like all of us aspire for our kids, is it's that space of grit. You know, what drew me to Baltimore was I wanted the city that we lived in to represent the ambition of who we were and who we stood for as a brand. And it was that lunch pail, blue collar, you know, work harder, not the most talented, wasn't given all of God's gifts, but some way, somehow, find a way to persevere and get through. And so bringing this business to Baltimore, and now 17,000 strong, incredibly proud. And as we like to say, we're just getting started, so best is yet to come.
I think there's a lot of people right now Googling sports brands and home countries and trying to piece it all together.
Well, if you don't know, you don't know.
Good. You're okay. Better off. Right. Don't Google it. It doesn't even work in here. Your phones are blocked. No, but I think I'll never forget as a high school, so it's 98 was founded, right? So I was probably 99, 2000. I was a sophomore, junior in high school, and my dad was our coach, and he opened up these boxes of white cutoff Under Armour, like the original. I think it might have been the first product you guys ever made. And when we put those on we were only allowed to wear it in games. My dad, he's like, we only got one for every kid. Yep. So you can only wear it in games. So if you wear it in practice and lose it or it's dirty, you're not playing. So, I mean, it was serious. And I'll never forget putting that on. And again, you thought you had a lot of muscles in high school and it was cut off. You felt good. But I'll never forget putting on my first Under Armour, putting my gear over the top of it. And it was just different. And you felt super cool.
Yeah, that speaks to what we're supposed to do, is that in every Under Armour product, if we're doing our job, it should be like a superpower included, that a little girl, a little boy, and there's nothing better than watching them. I've actually seen this firsthand before, of being in a sporting goods store at 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and true story, out on the West Coast, big sporting goods store, and watch some mom walk in with 2 little kids, a little boy, little girl. I'm sorry, two little boys that walked in with them. And she's got them both in the hands, and they were like 8 and 10 years old. And the one little boy is like, walks in, and we're walking the store and doing our jobs. And then all of a sudden, like this kid just goes like, Mom, look, Under Armour, Under Armour, Under Armour. And the kid starts going crazy. And the mom's like, no, we didn't come to get here. That stuff's expensive. Don't go over there. I'm sitting in the back. I'm like, go. Break away from Mom. It's time. And kid runs over, grabs his Under Armour. The mom's distracted. She's helping the other one, like getting him dressed. And then she like looks back, and I watch this little boy like walk over, and he's sitting there. He still has his school shirt on, so he pulls his compression shirt over through his head, his arms out to sides, and he just looks, and he walks in the middle of the aisle, and he just goes, "Hey, Mom, look at me. I'm wearing Under Armour. I can do anything." And I'm watching that happen, and I'm realizing that feeling that hopefully you felt as well, which is that's what a brand is. It's meant to give you this permission that not just for, I'm going to make the team, I'm going to win the championship, these other things, but we're meant to be that concentric circle of security, like we have our friends group, our church groups, our school groups, like all these different groups that come together. Your brand is meant to be something that gives you that gift. And as I said, it's not just for the elite athlete, but it is for that little girl or that little boy on the first day of school when you're standing in the lunchroom with your tray in your hand. You're like, where am I going to sit? But it's like, you know what? Today, I've got Under Armour. I've got that little edge. I've got that little edge. That's what we're supposed to do and build every day. And as, frankly, stepping now back into the CEO job, which I was lucky enough to take over about 5 or 6 weeks ago, realizing what will get us there is not playing Freebird and looking backwards, but thinking about what we're going to do going forward and how we create that essence and sense of what is brand. And that's what you have in Baltimore, is an ambition for the company that lives here is to be the #1 athletic brand in the world. So we expect to do that.
That's awesome. Well, and as we continue to kind of transition forward, I'm going to get back to just your roots in DC, because I think it's super important conversation, especially in relation here to Project Play. But back in 2017, the city of Baltimore, alongside Project Play, they commissioned a study across the entire Baltimore area about what is the current status of youth sports in Baltimore. And through that, Aspen Institute and Project Play, they submitted Under Armour as a brand, alongside with the local governments and the local programs they put. Maybe no company or individual other than yourself has made a bigger impact on that kind of post-2017 State of Play report than yourself and Under Armour. And I know a big program that's important to you, that Project Rampart, you're funding middle school athletics, the correlation between participation in high school sports and academic success, graduation rates and all that. Just how important is it for you as a company? Yes, you want to sell shoes, you want to sell shirts, yes, but also the impact, your ability to not only to impact this city, a city that's important, a city where you've put down your roots. Like, just talk about Project Rampart and just what an impact Under Armour as a brand and you individually as its leader have, how proud you are of the impact you've been able to make here in Baltimore.
Okay, so here comes the close. You guys,
we're not ready to close yet. We got like two more topics.
But I'm not pushing product today, unless we have a little time at the end. What I am doing is having the Aspen Institute here, massive deal, especially at our most respected institution, the state, our state's largest employer, more than 50,000 here at Johns Hopkins, and like the power of what this organization means. And when you're in a town like Baltimore that is trying to find its way of where we are right now, we have a great identity, we have amazing people, we have incredible assets, the infrastructure. But what we do have is we have our systemic problems like many urban centers around the country. And so at Under Armour, it's important to us where the reason that we've committed to this town so heavily is the alignment with the brand that we're building, that blue collar, that work boot, that like underdog, find a way, somehow. But it's also, I believed, probably 2008, 2009, I could see the trajectory of the company. And it was looking and saying what consumers are going to care about is not just what's the product that you make or the athletes that you sign, and those things are all important, of course, but it's also like, what do you stand for? What are you about? And for us, we made this commitment to putting a flag in the ground, again, and saying that Baltimore is home. And it also meant for what are we doing for our community? So we believe that, sports can change the world. So how can I say that easily? Every company has their own currency. For JP Morgan, their currency is cash. For McKinsey, their currency is time. For Under Armour, our currency is product. And we understand that, if we use it the right way, can really be a weapon. And so it was about 7 or 8 years ago from our UA Philanthropy division, we built and started in partnership to build this idea called Project Rampart. And what we did is we signed on with 23 different partner schools, effectively all the public schools in the city of Baltimore. And we said we're going to outfit these kids with product. We're going to outfit every varsity program, and that's why you saw Aaliyah earlier. And I know Aaliyah's here today too, I think, and she's part of our student council that we have for Project Rampart. But what we do is we're saying, if we outfit these kids, what will the effects be? So in Baltimore City, our graduation rates were, just 4 or 5 years ago, about 63%. Due to the hard work of Dr. S and what we're doing across the city, Mayor Scott, who just won the nomination last night, it's moved now to how we actually elevate this on a broader level. And so with Project Rampart, we decided if we can outfit these kids, just the varsity athletic programs, including the coaches, to give to the kids, as we also are able to give them some of the accessories, the shirts, the wristbands, the other things, the socks, the elements that go, that says somebody cares about you. We found that graduation rates have gone from 63% to 70% under Dr. S. If we can convince a kid to play a sport each of their 4 years while in high school, those graduation rates, which are frankly unacceptable on any level, to think about 1 in 3 kids isn't going to make it through high school, as Americans, let alone Baltimoreans, we should not accept that. But if we can convince them to play a sport each of their 4 years, those graduation rates go from 63 or 70% to 92.7%. This is our latest data. So we can basically erase that in keeping kids in school. So stay with me. If sports can change the world, what this is telling kids that they're going to get a new uniform every 2 or 3 years. That actually turns over. They're getting new swag every single year. We attract and we get better coaches that want to come play. The kids want to go play for better coaches. We're doing this right now just for the varsity athletic programs. And this is everything from the football and basketball teams all the way down to the ping pong and volleyball teams and everywhere else across an athletic program. Sports can really make a massive difference because it's occupying that time from 3 to 6 in the evening. It's also giving them a place of belonging. It's giving them a mentor and a coach. And this is something that we invite this audience, as you sit here and get to learn about our city, learn what's happening. We'd love you to help us do more at Project Rampart, because to do this, and what I always loved about Baltimore, and we decided, how can we affect this city? Because that's where, as Under Armour was growing in 08, 09, I'm looking out we've got all this incredible growth in front of us. It'd be a waste to just utilize that for just shareholder growth. Because I believe the consumer is going to care not just about, again, the things that you're making, but it's also who you are and what you do, especially a consumer-facing brand. So our ability to really articulate this through a program as clear as Project Rampart, and we're talking about a couple of $1 million a year. And again, what I love about Baltimore, we're big enough to be a data point, 600,000-ish people. We're small enough to be actionable, 3,000 kids in school. We have those relationships, from John Stanky at AT&T to Tim Cook at Apple, and we get an issue and saying, what if we just tried this as the pilot? And of course, I'm ambitious with this, but what if we got every kid an iPad? So we weren't having to worry about the broadband issues with COVID and some of the other things we've seen, but what if we could really arm a city and find out how great we could make it? Well, that's one aspect, but what we're doing is we're attacking it from how are these kids going to spend their time? And we believe that Project Rampart is something incredibly worthy. And so for anyone interested in this program of tapping into it with us, because we'd love to expand this, we want to get DC on the list next as we can grow this. Flynn Birch at UnderArmour.com is here as well, and Flynn, who runs our philanthropy for Under Armour here in town. Please reach out and have this conversation, because I think we can actually change graduation rates. And so we've got 8 years of data, 34,000 kids that have gone through this program. This isn't made up numbers. This is something real. We'd love to take it to the next level if we could do JV teams and freshman teams as well. Imagine where these stats can go to.
That's awesome. Well, you brought up you brought up DC, and obviously with your roots and your backstory there, and how important that city is, tying it in. Talk a little bit about now being a champion for trying to get a similar state of play, kind of being commissioned by Aspen and Project Play, where they could do a similar study that they did here in Baltimore in 2017, do it in Washington, D.C., and almost now bring the two cities together and almost treat the region, as you guys have been so invested here in the Baltimore area. How can you grow that kind of reach and grow that impact into the D.C. area? Talk a little bit about why Washington, D.C. is such a big priority for you individually and as a company.
Well, I think I'm a great bridge for that, obviously being a D.C. kid who's now in Baltimore. And while we're 32 miles apart geographically, we might as well be 1,000 miles apart in so many ways. I see that as of understanding what we can do, but the flag that we have in Baltimore is one that's real. And frankly, as a member of the Greater Washington Partnership, for instance, that's meant to look at regionally from Richmond to Baltimore, what can this Greater Washington region do? And as somebody who I've had the privilege of traveling the world, and you see what super cities look like in Asia. You're talking 8 million, 10 million, 20 million, 30 million kind of demographics, where we can create more critical mass to think about dealing with our issues holistically versus as one-offs. But this is the only way to eat the elephant is one bite at a time. And so for us, while DC is ambitious for us, we know that we need to build that here. And one thing that I do want to say is, I want to get to is that partnership with DC and Baltimore, is that I think it's important that we have some anchors in Baltimore City too. And I'd just love to say to this audience that I know if you're from around the world, you probably saw Baltimore catch national news, a couple months ago as we all watched this bridge, which is named after the author of our national anthem, crumble into the water like an erector set. Those kind of images, they're not good. And as we've been lucky enough with, I think the White House has reached out, and Secretary Buttigieg, and we've had the opportunity to talk to a lot of them. What we want to arrest as much as anything is not just when is the bridge going to be rebuilt, and the answer is, well, it took 5 years to build the first time, so I don't think there's any quick answer for that. And honestly, in my 25 years in Baltimore, having raised 2 kids here, my son James, who's home from his sophomore year in college, my daughter Catherine, a 17-year-old junior in high school here in the area, it's understanding what it means for them too, is that this city cannot have the metaphor of a bridge crumbling in the water like an erector set, of what that means is the metaphor for our town. So we need to show growth. And that's more importantly where I'm pushing to them, is that we can't afford to wait 5 years for a new bridge that I've driven over, half a dozen times in my time here. We need the actual, what are we doing to build this town? And so one thing that I am incredibly proud of, and I'd love to just let this audience know, is that we are committed to this town. We are doubled down in this town. And actually, as part of a broader vision in something called Baltimore Peninsula, the anchor of that, which is our Under Armour headquarters, we have a new headquarter building which is going to be opening up here, which this is, as you head from, as you watch this is heading south from Washington, north to New York, just before, or sorry, the other way, DC to New York this way, just before you hit the tunnel, just off to your right-hand side, all that port industrial land that was there before. Myself and our partners from Goldman Sachs built this mixed-use development. Separately from that is the headline of it, which is the Under Armour headquarters. And knowing that by putting this flag here of what we could say for this town, and from a city that still lives by the brand that was built about us or told about us from an HBO television show that's 15 years old, we have to crack that. We have to show people that this can be a town of safety and security, that this can be a town of innovation and growth. And frankly, this new 285,000 square foot headquarter building that we have going up, set to open in November, is going to be one of those edifices for us that will be a symbol of, what I always wanted for Under Armour is that people live in the area and they ride skateboards wearing backpacks to work with, test tubes and white lab coats and finding the next great fiber and fabric. That's what our brand is next meant to be. finding the next great innovation. And we like to say we have not yet built our defining product as a brand, but we're going to do it in that house, and we're going to do it with our anchor headquarters here in Baltimore City.
Well, on behalf of everyone here at Project Play, I know you have a lot going on. You said tomorrow's earnings, so you probably have to get back and do some work. But for you to take some time out of your schedule to not only just share why Baltimore means a lot to you, but your impact on the youth sports community here and throughout the country. As a father of 3 kids who own a lot of your product, so you're welcome. We buy a lot of your stuff. Just for you to take the time out to come and not just talk about selling shirts and shoes, but to talk about the ability to build a brand that has the impact that Under Armour does all throughout the world, and have the awareness and the wherewithal to say, you know, we can impact not only the community that we reside in, but also globally, and have that impact on young kids and improve their life expectancies and their quality of life is really remarkable. And I think in today's world, for people like you to have that vision where it's bigger than the brand, it's bigger than yourself, I think a lot of people in the audience can really relate to that. Cool. Appreciate that, and for you to come here today and share your story, which obviously we're all very familiar with, but to share where the vision is going forward now. It was a great honor to sit and get to know you and talk to you, and I appreciate you sharing that vision for Baltimore and beyond with the Project Play folks, and really appreciated our time together.
Well, thank you for everybody for coming to our town, investing. It's a beautiful town, and just look at the bones of this city, from our inner harbor to over to Baltimore Peninsula. We have a great town, and we have a great heart of a city of people. So we'd love you to come here and spend this time and use it as, I think this is a data point that we could look at nationally and say, if we can fix it there, it's big enough for something that we could scale maybe on a much broader basis. So please touch base with Flynn. If you want to get involved with Project Rampart, we'd love you to be a part of it. So thank you, Johns Hopkins. Thank you, Aspen Institute. Thanks very much, Greg. Wonderful to be with all of you.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much.